All right, let's dive deep into a question that drives almost everything we do, whether we realize it or not. What actually makes us happy?
It's the big one, isn't it? And for this deep dive, we're pulling from a truly unique collaboration, The Art of Happiness, a book born from conversations between His Holiness the Dalai Lama.
Right, coming from that deep Buddhist wisdom.
Exactly, and psychiatrist Dr. Howard Cutler, grounded in modern American science and psychology.
That blend sounds fascinating right from the start. Like two completely different worlds, but they found common ground, didn't they?
They really did. Their core premise is that beneath all the surface differences, culture, background, beliefs were fundamentally the same.
We all just want to be happy.
And avoid suffering, yeah. They really stripped it down to that basic human level.
Which is probably why it resonates so much.
Absolutely. And that shared desire is precisely what makes their insights so universal. They weren't, aiming for some unreachable state, but really about cultivating genuine happiness day to day.
And that's our mission today. To dig into this material, past the theory, and find the really practical, actionable insights you can use. What did these two minds agree was the most important stuff for actually building a happier life? Okay, let's unpack this.
So the very first thing they emphasize, and it's maybe the most powerful takeaway, is that happiness isn't primarily determined by what happens to you.
Right.
It's about your your state of mind.
That feels almost counterintuitive, doesn't it? I mean, surely winning the lottery makes you happier. They use some great stories to push back on that.
Oh, definitely.
Like the friend who got that huge financial windfall at 32.
Yeah.
What happened to her long-term happiness?
Well, the book says after the initial excitement, she wasn't significantly happier than she was before, just settled back.
Wow.
And contrast that with another friend, same age, diagnosed with HIV. Initially devastated, understandably.
What?
But over time, that experience became a catalyst for profound transformation. He found a deeper appreciation for simple things, was happier moment to moment. Yes, and even explored spirituality. He actually said while he'd prefer not to have the virus, it had positively changed his life.
Wow. That really highlights the idea of psychological adaptation, right? We have this incredible ability to return to a baseline level of happiness.
Exactly. Major highs or lows might bump us up or down temporarily, but we tend to bounce back. We adapt.
Which explains a lot.
And the research they cite supports this. Simple mental exercises can shift that baseline, thinking about how things could be worse.
That sounds strange, but it works.
Apparently. Like those studies showing people felt better about their lives after contemplating historical hardships can actually boost satisfaction more effectively than constantly wishing things were better.
So the conventional wisdom that says more money, better health, or greater success automatically equals lasting happiness.
Yeah, the book really challenges that.
It argues that without the right mental approach, those external factors have surprisingly minimal impact on long-term well-being.
Minimal to almost none in the long run, yes. It explains why materially wealthy societies can still struggle with widespread unhappiness because the inner state is neglected.
You see frustration, anxiety.
Substance issues, even high rates of suicide can exist amidst external abundance if there's inner turmoil. The mind matters most.
Okay, so if happiness is an inside job, what gets in the way? One major culprit they point to is desire. But this is tricky, because wanting happiness is a positive desire.
Yeah.
So what kind of desire is the problem?
The distinction is key. There are beneficial desires for peace, for a better world, for happiness itself. These are motivating, they're good.
Okay.
But then there are what they call unreasonable desires. This is the relentless craving for more possessions, more experiences, often beyond necessity, just more.
Like walking through a grocery store. Like you see all these appealing things and the first impulse is, I want that and that and that.
Exactly, that impulse. But the crucial second thought is, do I really need any of this? Following those unreasonable desires, that constant impulse to acquire or experience without reflecting on genuine need, leads directly to trouble.
How so?
You hit limitations, you can't have it all, and that friction often results in disappointment, losing hope, or even depression.
And they make a very strong point here. You can't judge if a desire or action is positive based on whether it gives you immediate satisfaction.
No, absolutely not. That's a crucial mistake.
A murderer might feel a temporary sense of satisfaction, but that obviously doesn't make the act good.
Right. Or non-virtuous actions might feel good in the moment, but their ultimate long-term consequence is negative. It's the ultimate outcome that matters, not the immediate feeling.
Which brings us to another common point of confusion that the book clarifies. Happiness is not the same as pleasure.
Yes, this is a big one, a
Yeah.
really common mix-up.
This is a trap so many of us fall into. Thinking if something feels good right now, it's contributing to happiness.
Mhm.
The story of Heather and her job decision illustrates this perfectly.
Yes. Heather was a counselor in Phoenix, unhappy with her living situation. She got offered a job in this beautiful mountain town she'd always dreamed of living in, dream location.
Sounds great.
But the job itself wasn't working with the troubled youth she loved helping. It was with adults, which wasn't her passion. She made a pros and cons list,
Yeah.
and it was perfectly balanced. Stuck.
Because she was weighing the pleasure of the mountain town lifestyle against the dissatisfaction with the work.
Exactly. The breakthrough happened when she stopped asking, which choice will bring me more pleasure, and asked, which choice will bring me more happiness.
Oh, reframing the core question.
And suddenly the decision was clear. She chose to stay in Phoenix, doing the work that gave her a deeper sense of purpose and fulfillment, the work she found genuinely meaningful.
Even though it meant giving up the pleasure of the dream location.
Right. It shows that pursuing genuine happiness often requires passing up immediate pleasure. They're different goals. So, if happiness is an internal state, distinct from fleeting pleasure, how do you actually build it? The book's answer is direct. You train your mind.
Yes, they say once your basic needs are met, you already have the fundamental tool for happiness. Your mind.
It's not about getting more stuff.
No, it's not about acquiring external things. It's about working with what you have internally, developing it.
And the path involves learning. First, understanding how negative emotions and behaviors are actually harmful.
Not just to others, but ultimately to yourself. They destroy your own peace.
Right. And conversely, how positive states are helpful.
That realization, seeing the clear cause and effect, is what sparks the determination, the willingness from within to change your habits and outlook. You have to see it for yourself.
But it's not a quick fix, is it? They emphasize that.
Oh, definitely not. Genuine happiness requires transformation, a deep change in perspective. It takes time and effort, like your body adapting to a new climate.
Yeah.
It's not about finding one magical secret. It requires varied approaches to tackle complex inner states. Lots of different tools. And that requires discipline, crucially self-discipline.
Yes. Not discipline imposed by someone else, but the internal application of effort to overcome negative patterns and cultivate positive ones. It's work you do on yourself.
Which begs the question, if wanting happiness is so natural, why doesn't it just happen spontaneously? Why the need for all this effort and training?
That's a great question. The book suggests it's due to negative conditioning and ingrained habits we've developed over time.
We learn bad habits.
We do. And our education and intelligence are often focused outward on the world, on careers. We need to turn them inward to actively train the mind and cultivate what they call a good heart.
Ah, good heart. This seems central to the book's message. Compassion and warmth are presented as absolutely vital for psychological health and happiness.
They see these qualities as opening an inner door, allowing us to connect with others based on our shared humanity.
And that connection helps us.
Massively. This openness dissolves fear, self-doubt, and insecurity, fostering trust and connection. The belief is that the underlying nature of humans is gentleness and compassion.
And aggression.
That often arises from an imbalance, perhaps a misapplication of intelligence, or from fear itself.
And this isn't just spiritual philosophy. The book points to scientific research backing this up.
Right. Studies showing how feelings of compassion can boost immune function, for instance.
Or that engaging in regular volunteer work is linked to increased life expectancy. Helping others helps you.
Yes, the benefits of connection extend beyond just feeling good emotionally. Studies show that social support and intimacy promote physical well-being.
Like better heart health.
Lower cancer rates, stronger immune function, even lower cholesterol. It's quite remarkable.
From a psychological angle, the source notes that thinkers like Fromm and Bowlby saw fear of separation and lack of intimacy as deep roots of human anxiety, fear, and sadness. We're wired for connection.
We absolutely are. But the book also challenges our conventional, particularly Western definition of intimacy.
You mean like the one special person idea?
Exactly that. The idea of finding all your deep connection needs met in that single romantic partner. They note this is culturally and historically specific. It hasn't always been the norm.
And relying solely on that one romantic relationship for all your intimacy needs can lead to a lot of misery, especially if it's not present or goes through challenges.
Precisely. The pressure is immense. The book argues for expanding our view of intimacy to include connection in many forms.
Friends, family.
Colleagues, even strangers, based on recognizing shared humanity. The Dalai Lama's approach is about cultivating openness to many people. There's a vast reservoir of potential intimacy if we broaden our perspective beyond just romance.
So how do you actively cultivate this compassion and empathy? The book offers a very specific practical meditation technique.
It's quite powerful, yeah. You start by visualizing a person who is suffering, maybe a stranger you read about, like a child facing hardship far away. Spend time reflecting analytically on the reality of their suffering. Then, this is crucial, you relate that suffering to your own capacity for pain. You recognize they are a human being just like you.
With the same basic wants.
Exactly, the same fundamental wish to be happy and free from pain.
And that recognition, that sense of shared humanity, allows a natural feeling of compassion to arise.
It does. From there, you actively wish for them to be free from suffering and resolve to help in any way you can, even if it's just sending that wish.
They also mention the giving and receiving visualization.
Yes, Tomlin. Symbolically taking on their suffering and giving them your positive qualities or resources. It's a profound practice.
It sounds like training your mind to feel with and for others.
That's exactly it. And empathy is a key part of this, deliberately putting yourself in another person's shoes, trying to see the world from their perspective, even suspending your own viewpoint for a moment.
Like the taxi driver anecdote they mentioned. Or maybe a slow waiter.
Right. It's easy to get frustrated and personalize it, thinking the waiter is intentionally rude or incompetent.
Happens all the time.
But if you pause and consider, maybe the restaurant is short-staffed tonight because someone called in sick, or maybe they're having a really bad day, you're trying to see the situation from their side.
That changes your reaction.
Completely. The book argues seeing things from another's perspective, focusing on common humanity, can drastically reduce your own self-created suffering and conflict.
Speaking of relationships, beyond just that initial spark, the book contrasts relationships based primarily on immediate sexual attraction with those built on appreciating a person's inner qualities like kindness and gentleness.
They don't mince words, do they? Calling relationships based mainly on immediate sexual attraction shaky, unreliable, unstable, and temporary.
Yeah, the analogy used is being insane with passion. That initial feeling is often fleeting and not a solid foundation. It can blind you.
Right. In contrast, relationships built on truly getting to know someone's basic characteristics over time, appreciating their kindness and gentleness, are described as more long-lasting, reliable, and appropriate for building a life together.
Takes more time, though.
It does, requires patience. And underlying it all is responsibility and commitment. They stress that sound relationships aren't just about temporary satisfaction or having fun.
Important, but not everything.
No. They require a commitment to sharing life's challenges and having a sense of responsibility for each other's well-being, seeing it through.
And they acknowledge that relationships, like any living system, are dynamic. Intimacy levels naturally shift over time. Physical, emotional, intellectual closeness will wax and wane.
That's such an important point because we often panic when that initial intense closeness changes. We think something's wrong.
Yeah. Are we growing apart?
But the book suggests it's normal, part of balancing the need for togetherness with individual autonomy. What feels like growing apart doesn't have to signal doom.
It could be something else.
It can actually be a transition point towards a deeper, more mature form of love. It's about seeing the other person as a separate, real human being with their own faults and quirks.
Not just an idea.
Exactly. And then making a conscious, genuine commitment to their growth and well-being, not just loving an idealized version of them. The story of Margaret, divorcing and remarrying her husband after they both grew, is a great example of this potential evolution.
And this ties directly into facing suffering, which they say is universal. Our default mode is to avoid it.
Oh, yeah. Through distractions, blaming others, seeking immediate comfort, anything to not feel it.
But the key is acceptance. The book argues that modifying your attitude towards suffering, moving from aversion to tolerance, is essential for coping.
That ancient story of Kisa Gotami seeking the mustard seed from a house when no one had died.
It's powerful.
It really illustrates that loss and suffering are inescapable parts of the human condition. Struggling against that universal reality only adds to the pain. Acceptance is the first step.
And they even argue that obstacles, difficulties, and yes, even annoying or challenging people your enemies can have.
It sounds counterintuitive again, but yeah, they test you. They provide resistance necessary for growth.
Like lifting weights builds muscle.
Exactly. Facing challenges builds resilience and inner strength. The analogy they use is powerful. Being pampered like a baby hinders development, while facing difficulties fosters it.
They mention Renaissance Italy versus Switzerland.
Yeah, the comparison between the tumultuous, conflict-ridden Renaissance Italy producing incredible art and innovation, and Switzerland, known for peace and stability, but perhaps fewer world-shattering artistic or intellectual movements. It's a provocative example they use to suggest conflict can spur growth.
Let's talk about those specific difficult internal states the book helps you tackle, like what they call self-created suffering.
Right. This is often when we personalize annoying situations or have a habit of blaming others.
Like the slow waiter example again.
Exactly. Getting frustrated and deciding the waiter is deliberately incompetent when an objective look might show the restaurant is just short-staffed or something else entirely is going on.
So the antidote is objectivity.
Taking a step back, looking for other factors, or even your own small contribution to the situation, can reduce that feeling of being unfairly victimized. Objective analysis.
They also touch on karma here, clarifying it's not passive fate, but literally means action, emphasizing our capacity for initiative now to change things.
Yes, it's about agency. Even if you're completely blameless and being lied to, for example, the book suggests a Buddhist perspective might involve looking for any small way you might have contributed.
That's self-blame, though.
No, definitely not self-blame. It's more like perhaps a lack of trustworthiness in your own nature that didn't invite full candor from the other person. It's a subtle technique to shift focus from external grievance to internal work, finding some angle for personal responsibility, however small.
It's a different way of framing challenging situations to find room for personal agency. What about regret? That could be a heavy burden.
The book is realistic. It doesn't say regret vanishes. The Dalai Lama shares a poignant story about a past misunderstanding with a monk that had tragic consequences.
And he still feels it.
He says the feeling of regret is still there, yes, but the goal is to prevent it from crushing you, from becoming a heavy, discouraging weight that stops you from living fully now. Acknowledge it, learn, but don't let it paralyze you.
And anger and hatred. These are described as truly destructive afflictions from within.
Absolutely. They obliterate peace of mind and distort judgment like a temporary madness. You can't think clearly.
And suppression doesn't work.
The book says you can't just suppress them. That doesn't work long term. You have to actively cultivate the antidotes. Patience and tolerance.
It's a conscious effort.
A battle to be won, yes. Choosing patience protects you from creating the negative consequences that anger inevitably leads to. A practical tip they give. If anger flares, physically remove yourself if possible, calm down, and then analyze the situation rationally.
Anxiety and worry are huge for so many people. What's the approach there?
They offer a simple, almost logical technique here. Ask yourself, is there a solution to the problem I'm worrying about? Can I actually do something? If yes, great. Stop worrying and focus your energy entirely on taking action, on implementing the solution.
And if no, if there's nothing you can do,
then accept the situation. There's literally no point in worrying if you can't change it. Worrying achieves nothing then. It sounds simple, but requires constant practice to actually do it.
that makes sense.
They also acknowledge that sometimes there are biological factors at play, and medical help might be necessary for anxiety, which is an important point. It's not always just mindset.
Right. What about that fear of appearing foolish or being judged? Even the Dalai Lama admitted feeling anxiety before public talks.
Yes. And his antidote is powerful and simple. Proper motivation and honesty.
How did that help?
If your primary goal is genuinely to benefit others, to share something helpful, and you're honest about what you know and what you don't know, then the fear of what others think tends to dissolve.
Because your focus shifts outward.
Exactly. Sincere motivation builds confidence and removes that crippling self-consciousness. You're not there to impress, you're there to help.
This links to the distinction they make between genuine self-confidence and arrogance.
Yes. Arrogance is based on an inflated, often groundless sense of self, like boasting about things you can't actually do.
Whereas confidence.
Confidence, on the other hand, is sound and valid, based on a realistic assessment of your actual capabilities. And honesty with yourself and others about what you can and can't do actually increases genuine confidence.
The Dalai Lama's example about miracles is funny.
It is. Saying not being able to perform miracles doesn't bother him or cause a lack of confidence because he never expected that capacity. It might just cause awkwardness if people ask. He also mentions seeking consultation and discussing decisions with others as a way to build confidence in your choices.
Finally, self-hatred. They note this concept is somewhat surprising from a Buddhist perspective focused on overcoming self-centeredness.
Right, because Buddhism often talks about the problems of ego, not hating the self.
But they acknowledge it's a significant issue in Western culture and a major obstacle to happiness for some people.
And a simple, immediate counter technique offered is to pause and remind yourself of the great qualities you share with all human beings.
Right.
Like the capacity for kindness, for intelligence, the basic wish for happiness. Focusing on that fundamental shared positive humanity can help counteract that intensely negative internal view, remembering your basic goodness.
Bringing all these pieces together, the book presents spirituality as a vital, final component for a truly happy life.
Yes, the capstone, in a way.
And they break it down into two levels. There's religious belief, which for many provides an ethical framework, community, purpose, hope, and comfort.
Like in the story of Terry Anderson, the hostage who found strength in prayer during his captivity, religion offered solace.
But the more universally applicable and arguably more crucial level is what they call basic spirituality.
And what is that exactly?
This is simply about cultivating fundamental human qualities like goodness, kindness, compassion, caring. Qualities everyone possesses the potential for.
So not tied to any specific religion.
No, they argue these should be taught through education as essential human values for everyone's well-being, regardless of religious belief. Basic human ethics.
And true spiritual practice isn't limited to formal rituals like chanting or praying in a temple.
Right. That can be part of it. But the core is training your mind and cultivating these positive states in the midst of daily life, 2047.
So it's about how you live moment to moment.
Yes. It's about restraining negative impulses, being mindful of your inner state, choosing kindness in your interactions all the time.
The most powerful illustration of this is the story of the Tibetan monks who endured years of horrific conditions in Chinese prisons.
It's an incredible story.
Their primary focus wasn't just survival, but training their minds, cultivating patience and compassion, even for their torturers.
It's hard to even imagine.
And the account of the monk who said the greatest danger he faced in prison was losing his compassion for the Chinese. That hits you deep. It shows the power of the mind.
It demonstrates the extraordinary potential for inner peace and happiness to be cultivated, even in the face of extreme external suffering, through dedicated mental training and the cultivation of compassion.
So zooming back out from this deep dive, we've unpacked the core message that happiness is fundamentally an internal state rooted in your mind, not external circumstances.
Right, it's an inside job. We explored the tricky nature of desire, the crucial distinction between fleeting pleasure and genuine happiness.
And the necessity of actively training your mind to foster positive states and overcome negative ones. It takes work.
We saw how compassion and authentic intimacy are vital for well-being, how relationships are dynamic systems requiring commitment beyond initial attraction.
The importance of accepting suffering and even finding value in obstacles, seeing challenges as opportunities for growth.
And we touched on practical ways to handle difficult internal states, from anger and anxiety to self-doubt and regret, and finally the role of basic spirituality, that cultivation of fundamental human goodness in a fulfilling life.
The overwhelming takeaway from this source is that genuine, lasting happiness isn't some elusive stroke of luck or a fixed destination. It's not something you just find.
It's something you build.
Exactly. It's a state you can build, a skill you can develop through conscious learning, self-discipline, and actively working to change your perspective and internal responses.
And the incredible part is, they argue all the resources you need for this journey, the potential for this transformation, are already within your mind right now.
It takes time, it takes effort for sure, but the capacity is inherently human. We all have it.
So, building on this, if cultivating warmth and compassion truly helps dissolve fear, insecurity, and can even boost physical health,
how might consciously practicing moments of genuine connection with others, even just an open and warm glance or word with a stranger you encounter today, fundamentally shift your experience of the world this week?